All right, everyone. Welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 12 recap. Hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving, and I certainly did. Um, yeah, we had some big performances this past week. Nothing really came down to Monday night. There was one matchup, sort of, maybe, but not really, and it was people who are already out of the playoffs anyway, so sorry guys, but no one cares. Just saying, it is what it is. Gags told me to tell you that. Someone set the season high point total. Disco set it a couple weeks ago with one of his victories. And Ed Lager this week says, step aside, young man, and watch as Ed Lager said 241 this week, which is the highest score of anyone so far this year. It's actually up against the defending champ, so that's actually going to be the first matchup that we will talk about. Oh, I was wondering what that was. There's a string hanging off of the jersey here. Speaking of the jersey, we probably got some things to talk about, don't we, Brian? Speaking of this thing. But anyway, let's get into the matchups for week 12. Of course, as always, we talk about the defending champion, Biscuits and Porn, trying to make a run back into the playoffs, try to get that back-to-back money pot. Things aren't going too good. Ed Lager said Biscuits and Porn, much like Disco having the record for the point total. Ed Lager takes a puff off of his cigar and says, step aside, son. Let me show you how it's done. And Ed Lager crushes Biscuits and Porn this week, 241.5 to 169.8. This matchup leaves Ed Lager and Biscuits and Porn both at 6-6, which we will get to a little bit after we get through the matchups. We'll talk about the standings a little bit and the race to the playoffs. All right, pretty much everything fell into place properly for Ed Lager this week. Patrick Mahomes puts up 51. Mike Evans, 2 touchdowns, 25 points. Zay Flowers, 2 touchdowns, 23.2. Olav, 18.5. DeAndre Swift, 9.5. Bijan, 2 touchdowns for him, 27.5. Kmet, 11.3. Mostert, 2 touchdowns for him, 21.5. Elle McPherson, the most beautiful kicker in the NFL, 5 point something. And then the Miami defense. I was talking to Jim a little bit on Friday when this game was going on, so I actually forgot that it was a thing that was happening Friday afternoon. Fortunately, there was some garbage time towards the end of this because the Jets offense had done nothing. The last I had looked at it, they had it was the third quarter, and they had 2 first downs and single-digit yards in passing and receiving, or rushing and passing. I was just oh my god, they're gonna set the Dolphins defense is gonna set the all-time record on single-week points here. However, said garbage time ended up they got some points at least and some yardage. Yahoo says 25 for Miami's defense. Based on the bump you got, looks like 24, I'm going to say. Something like that. So, just about 50 from the Dolphins defense. So, over 100 points from Ed's Buns this week. And then multiple 20-pointers up and down his lineup. Let's see. So Mahomes had 2 touchdowns. Evans had 2, so that's 4. Zay had 2, that's 6. Bijan had 2, that's 8. Mostert had 2, that's 10. Your defense scored a touchdown, that's 11. That probably is the most touchdowns any team has scored also this year. I have to take a look into the record book. I think 10 was the record. I think 14 in 1 week is the all-time record in the league. But, yeah, Ed's team scores 11 touchdowns this week. Let's see. There we go. Biscuits and Porn. So he was trying to not fall to 500, get win number 7. Couldn't do it. Let's see. He has Sam Howell go for 50. Amon-Ra, 18.5. Devontae Smith, 23.5. Downs, 9.5. Eckler, 9.5. Montgomery, 15. Kittle, only 5. Josh Jacobs, 25.5. I think his touchdown run was just short of a bink there for you. Sanders, the Miami kicker, goes for about 13. And then, unfortunately, your Detroit Lions defense got their asses handed to them on Thanksgiving. Yahoo says 3. Actual score from the Detroit Lions defense this week, 0. Mr. Quick. A reference you sadly would not understand. But anyway, yeah. In pursuit of his title defense, Biscuits and Porn fall short this week. Like I said, both teams are now 6-6. Ed moving up. Jim dropping down. Ed is now leapfrogs a bunch of people. He is on a heater right now. He is up to 5th place, while Biscuits and Porn drops down to 7th place. Currently on the outside, looking in. All right, next up, we'll just go straight down the line. We had the Wizard of Wimber going up against the Boomers, who was trying to not fall to 500. Trying to get win number 7, while the Wizard was trying to keep pace with Dub C Hooligans, perhaps climb up there, get ahead of him, or inch a little bit closer in terms of overall points at least. And we were able to do that this week. The Wizard of Wimber gets an easy victory here, 226.8 to 157.55. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, after Thanksgiving, I already had 160 points to, Boomers actually had Dak go for 60. So it was like I had about a 100-point lead on you after Thanksgiving, so I was feeling pretty good. After that, even though I said you only had your quarterback playing, but still that plus a 100-point lead. So I had on Thanksgiving Goff, Reed, Pollard, McCaffrey, the San Francisco defense, right? So half my team played on Thanksgiving, and I had 160 out of the gate there, so it felt pretty good. Honestly, said I totally forgot that there was a game on Friday and Sunday. Didn't really pay too much attention around the league to what was going on, just because I was pretty comfortable knowing that I was probably going to get a win this week. Anyway, so Goff goes for 53.5. Diggs goes for 19.5. Puka, 6.5. Jaden Reed, Jordan Reed? Blast from the past there. Jaden Reed goes for 15. Tony Pollard, 22.5, I should say. CMC goes for 34. Evan Engram, 10. Rashad White, 16. Let's see. McManus goes for about 14. And the San Francisco defense, Yahoo says 18. But I'm pretty sure we doubled that up to 36. So it was enough to get past Boomers this week. He said he was trying to climb his way back into the standings, into the playoff hunt. Needed to get a victory this week, not able to do it. So he joins the ranks of the 6-6 going into week 13. Like I said, Dak went for 60.5. Adam Thielen, only 1.2. Captain Kirk goes for 13. Devontae, 12. Mixon, 8. Singletary, 13. McBride, 13. Hubba Bubba goes for 20.2. Butker goes for 7 point something. And your Saints defense, Yahoo, I believe we actually had to cut points from you. Also, your defense only scored, Yahoo says 12. I believe they actually only scored 9. So yeah, some big even though Dak did his part, Hubba Bubba tried to do it for you, tried to help you out there, but it wasn't quite enough as the Wizard of Wimber had some pretty big performances this week and keeps pace, actually narrows the gap. Couldn't get Dub C to lose this week, but we were able to narrow the point gap there and get closer to Dub C. Hopefully, maybe try to sneak away first place for the regular season here by the end. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, Wizard of Wimber moves to 9-3. They are in second place, while Boomers drop to 6-6. He is in 8th place. All right, then we've got Darkwing Jet versus Yinzer Jags. Yinzer Jags not trying to avoid dropping to 6-6, while Darkwing Jet trying to keep pace with Dub C and the Wizard. This one went to Darkwing Jet. Over one of the 3 scores that were, I think this is the most 200-point scores in 1 week that we've had this year. Darkwing Jet 210.15 to Yinzer's 171.6. All right, Stafford goes for 50. Tank goes for 17. Lamb goes for 17. Tyreek goes for 25.5. Connor goes for 7. Najee goes for 16. Dalton Schultz kind of in a shootout there. Surprisingly, only 1.2. But the big one here, biggest difference in this matchup, Kyren Williams comes back from the IR, goes off for 2 touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns, almost 150 rushing yards, 60 receiving yards, not passing yards, 41.5 points. He pops off this week, big time. Is he going to be the new Todd Gurley? That's the question. We will see. Justin is hoping and praying that maybe McVay is going to use this guy as a new, instead of new Gurley, catching passes, running, doing everything, taking all the attention away from all the points away from Cup and Puka there. We need that stuff. Somebody needs to tell him. All right, Elliott goes for 10, and then Dallas Cowboys defense. Actually, Yahoo says 19. They actually did not get a big bump because they gave up. I mean, Howell had 300 passing yards, so they gave up a lot of yards. Didn't do great. I believe you only got like a 6-point bump there from 19 to 25. But between, said Stafford, Tyreek, Kyren, and the Dallas defense, there's enough to get past Yinzer Jags this week, who does have Jalen Hurts go for 53.5. DJ Moore, Monday night, 22.5 points there. Good performance from him, although it was all for naught, as this matchup was pretty much decided. Dubs goes for 6.5. Lockett, 6. Kamara, 16. Jalen Warren, 7. Laporta, 17.7. Cooper Kupp, 4.8. Carlson, 4 point something. And then a good play here to Denver Broncos defense at home against Cleveland. Their whole quarterback situation is a mess right now. Yahoo says 24. And it looks like you got a 9-point bump to 33 for your defense there. So pretty good Buns scores there, but too many single-digit scores. Kyren Williams single-handedly outscoring most, like about half of your roster there. Yins or Jags, always a recipe for a disaster whenever that happens, and unfortunately, that is what happened this week. Stafford said both had Stafford and Kyren Williams. 2 of Stafford's 4 touchdown passes went to Kyren Williams. With this win, Darkwing Jet, he's 8-4, keeping pace with said Dub C and the Wizard. He is in 3rd place, while Yinzer Jags drops to 6-6, though he is in 6th place, still in the playoff window if they started today, but fighting for a spot with lots of other people. All right, we'll talk about the last 2. There's 3 matchups left. The other 2 of them were irrelevant, basically. So we'll talk about this one here. We had Dub C Hooligans going against Hillbillies on PCP. Was praying that Hillbillies would somehow be able to pull this off after Stroud went for 63. Josh Allen says, hold my beer, and goes for 74. Dub C gets the victory, 192.95 to Hillbillies, 173.5. Like I said, Josh Allen goes for 74. Keenan goes for 22.5 on 14 catches. A.J. Brown, 14.5. Jamar Chase, 12. Gus the Bus, only 4.7. The Gus Bus, second most famous running back in Maryland. Stevenson, your running back from New England. The only good thing about the New England Patriots this year, 21.7. Njoku goes for 12. Gibbs goes for 11.3. Koo goes for 6 point something. And your Chiefs defense, Yahoo says 7. Looks like a pretty modest bump to 13 from your defense there. But yeah, biggest factor here, obviously, Josh Allen going for 74 points this week. Couple 20-pointers in there, and it was enough to get past Hillbillies. Said Stroud did go for 63. Pittman 20.5. Nico 23.5. Pickens 8.8. ETN 12.5. I was watching keeping track of that game a little bit. I know ETN definitely had multiple drives where he was stuffed at the goal line. So it could have been a bigger day for him, unfortunately. And I see Jonathan Taylor has a D next to his status here. He had 21.1. I don't know what is wrong with him. He's going to have surgery on his thumb. They hope to have him back in 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm assuming Tree still has Zach Moss. That's going to be good. Maybe somebody's going to try to make a trade there for him. We'll have to see what happens. Kelsey goes for 15. Shaheed, probably your worst possible flex play. Watson and Samuel would have been way better. He only went for 3 before getting hurt. But I'm pretty sure that if you had started Watson or Samuel, you still would have lost this matchup. Let's see, you lost by 19.45. So Watson scored 20.5. That would have been a 17.5 point bump there. And Samuel actually had 19. So really, Brian, nothing you could have done except started a kicker who scored positive points. Patterson, Twilight Batman goes for -1. Let's see. So yeah, if you had started in the flex there, Watson, this matchup would have just been way more painful, and you would have lost by like 1.5 points. Basically, thanks to your kickers -1. And then the Cleveland Browns defense let you down this week. Yahoo says 7. I actually think that, Brian, we did not have to adjust your score at all this week because their score was 7. And yeah, so with this victory, Dub C Hooligans remains in first place, moves up to 9-3. Dub C and the Wizard actually clinched playoff spots according to Yahoo. And Brian's worst dreams are starting to manifest themselves, trying to not lose out his last couple games and slip perhaps out of the playoffs with difficult matchups, as we know. He's talked about it several times here. He drops to 7-5 now, though he is still in 4th place. 2 weeks to go. Really needs to find one more win here. Jonathan Taylor going down certainly doesn't help. Though, as I said before, Brian, maybe it has something to do with this. The cursed Phillip Rivers jersey toying with you. The gods were just toying with you, giving you that 6-game winning streak earlier in the year, just to have it all come crashing down as your season falls apart, with ending on like a several-game losing streak here. Just saying, it's very, that's what I'm thinking. But what do I know? Anyway, alright, those were the matchups. We got 2 more matchups, but unfortunately, guys, these 2 matchups were teams who are essentially already eliminated from the playoffs. Josh now officially eliminated. So he was still on the bubble, I guess. Life support, more likely, Josh. But yeah, with his defeat this week, he is definitely out. So I guess we haven't really done it yet. So we should actually clap. We should. Goodbye, Gags to Riches. We will see you next year. Shawshank Athletics. We will see you next year. Disco. We will see you next year. And Possum Magic. We will see you next year. You guys are all definitely out of playoff contention, unfortunately. And you were all playing each other this week in matchups that were essentially playing for pride. AIDS knocks off Shawshank 159.35 to 142.15. So this one officially knocks Shawshank out for sure. For AIDS, Disco, Gardner Minshew goes for 40. Ayuk goes for 13. Waddle, 19.5. Hollywood, 14.5. 15 there. Charbonnet, 10. Brees, 12. Hawkinson, 16. Elijah Moore, 5.5. Dicker the kicker, 4-point-something. And the Colts defense, Yahoo says 18. Looks like you got a 6-point bump to 24. But it was enough to get past Shawshank. Herbert goes for 43.5. Amari Cooper, only 3.5. Garrett Wilson, 17.5. Not bad. D-Hop, only 8. Saquon, only 6. Derrick Henry, 2 touchdowns, 20.5. Jonnu Smith, a big 0. Jordan Addison, 10. Zerline, your kicker, 0. Josh, you only lost by 17 points, and you had 2 donuts in your lineup this week, and a 3-pointer there. What could you have anything different that you could have done? That's like Jonnu Smith is like your only tight end. Yeah, there's really actually nothing that you could have done different that would have changed this matchup. You just needed those guys to perform, and they did not. And your Baltimore Ravens defense, Yahoo says 21. Looks like you got a 12-point bump to 33. Not too bad there, but I will point out, just for pointing out sake, Kevin, that the San Francisco 49ers defense once again outscored the Baltimore Ravens defense this week. Only by 3 points, but outscoring them is outscoring them. So, yeah, just gotta point that out. Make sure we know. And then finally we had Possum Magic versus Gags to Riches. Possum gets the victory. Actually, Possum gets the victory. He is on a 2-game winning streak now. He's jumped all the way out of the basement into ninth place, knocking Gags down further into the basement at 3-9. All right, Possum went for 170.85 to Gags 126.75. All right, Purdy only 32.5. Ridley has a big game, goes for 22. Demario Douglas 11. Drake London 14. Pacheco 2 touchdowns for him. He gets 26. Matheson goes for 8.5. Kincaid goes for 8.5. Brian Robinson goes for 8.5. Hopkins, your kicker, 5 point something. And the Steelers defense, good game for them this week. Yahoo says 13. Actually, it looks like you got about a 21 point bump up to 34. So pretty good score there for your defense. So Pacheco does good. You got a couple 20 points there. Even though Purdy didn't really do a whole lot, it was enough to get past Gags to Riches, who just wants somebody to put him out of his misery. Tua goes for 29.25. Godwin 7.5. Debo 22.5. Brandon Cooks 17. Jerome Ford 12. AJ Dillon 11. Kyle Pitts 4.2. Robert Woods in the flex at 6. Aubrey, your kicker, goes for 8 point something. And then the Texans defense, Yahoo says 6. Gags, looks like you still got a 3 point bump there to 9. But yeah, under 30 from your quarterback. Debo showed up, and that was pretty much it. Once at 126, pretty low score there, unfortunately. With the victory, Possum moves up to 4-8. He is in ninth place, hanging a little bit of pride on the end of the season here. And Gags drops to 3-9. He remains in the basement in 12th place. So let's see. Tree didn't even use Rice, who we traded for, who actually scored 25 points this week. I don't know why you've got Demario Douglas in your starting lineup when you have Rashee Rice there on the Chiefs. There's nothing other than Stevenson, really nothing you should be touching out of New England this year. But yeah, I mean, not great performances from the guys that you traded for. But then again, Jim hasn't been getting great performances from the guys that he traded for either. So, shows what we know. The fantasy gods are fickle, and you don't want to toy with them too much there, Jimmy. Anyway, all right, so that was the events of Week 12. I don't think there were any real injuries that came up this week. Our Thanksgiving prayers were answered. A lot of players met or exceeded expectations this week. I do believe this was the first week where we had 3 200-point scorers. I think that was the most. And like I said, Ed set the single week record for this year at least with 241. Let's just take a peek here at the Yahoo record book for, let's see, single week. It's got Darkwing Jet for week 12. Justin also had 10 touchdowns this week. But I said Ed had 11, right? I don't know. They count, pretty sure they count your defense. I don't know why Ed isn't on here like he should be. I'm not sure. Yahoo seems to mess things up and have things in this record book that don't really make a lot of sense all the time. For example, it said, and right under here it says touchdowns. So I was looking at touchdowns most. Now I'm looking at touchdowns least. And it says season all-time, Yinzer Jags, season 2023, 1 touchdown. Like, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why It is saying that. It says the same thing with passing yards least. Possum Magic, season 2023, 0. I don't know why it would say that, but anyway. It does have Ed there taking over with the single week point total. Let's see. Jimmy Huber's single week record was actually in 2014. So we are approaching 10 years since Jimmy set that record. Should also point out that that record was set before we counted all of the stats, making it even more of an impressive feat. Excuse me. Talk about everything literally falling into place. I don't even remember. I think his defense had a shutout. His quarterback went crazy. Lots of things like, oh man, what was that? There was a receiver for the Bengals. I think he's dead now. Actually, sorry, but what was his name? Chris Henry? Was that his name? I think that was the guy. I don't know if Jimmy had. I don't know if it's possible to go back and look at that. We're only at the half-hour mark. Fuck it. Let's see if we can go back and see Jimmy Huber in week 6 of, that was 2014. We will pop into my Yahoo profile history. We're going to go back to Tonto's Demise 2014. It said that was week 6. So let's go in here, schedule. Where are you? New Gods, Mad Titans. Week 6. Let's see. I don't think it's been so long that Yahoo's not really going to tell me much of anything. It was Sanu. It was Mohamed Sanu, not Chris Henry. My mistake there. But anyway, let's see. For Jimmy that week, Andrew Luck went for 55. Demaryius Thomas went for 28. Sanu went for 28. I'm going to guess Torrey Smith went for 21. Giovanni Bernard went for 29. Zach Ertz, 13.5. Matt Forte went for 38. And the Philadelphia Eagles defense has, Yahoo says, 26. Looks like he got an 18-point bump there because Yahoo says 256 and he scored 275. So yeah, he got almost 50 from his defense, 55 from Andrew Luck there, almost 30 from Demaryius, Sanu, Bernard, almost 40 from Matt Forte. So yeah, Bobby Rainey, the weak link in that lineup. That was the single week Tonto's Demise record, 275 there. So yeah, in case you were curious, I'm gonna imagine most of you probably weren't. But yeah, it's fun to go back and reminisce on those things every now and then. All right. Anyway, the knockout pool is over. We're into the last 2 weeks of the regular season, and like I said before, we currently have Dub C and the Wizard have locked up playoff spots. Darkwing Jet probably this close to locking up a playoff spot. However, those are only half of the playoff spots. We still have 3 spots left. Said Brian desperately trying to cling to one of them, leaving the other 2 fighting between 4 guys. We have 4 teams at 6-6. Ed, Jim, Detling, and Zach. So with Brian, he's actually on a 3-game losing streak. Said trying to hold on to his playoff hopes. 2 weeks left. He absolutely needs to get at least one more win because All the guys who are 6-6, Brian, are ahead of you currently in overall points. So 7-7 actually might not be good enough for you. You need to definitely get to at least 8, because here in week 13, let's take a look at what we got. I do believe I said in the lineup there, all of these 6-6s, all 4 of those 6-6s, none of them play each other this week. Let's see, we've got, first one is Ed. He is getting Gags to Riches. Ed, come on. I believe Ed actually has the easiest path to 8-6. He plays, I think, Gags and Josh the last 2 weeks. Was that correct? He plays Gags and Possum Magic. So Possum, show up in week 14. Unless by some act of God, Gags' team goes crazy this week. You never know. You never know. Anyway, so yeah. Ed gets Gags. Yinzer Jags gets Hillbillies. That's kind of like 2 6-6s going against each other. All right, both of these teams desperately need this victory. We got 2 of the podcasters going up against each other. Formerly the podcasters of power. Brian versus Matt. Both of you desperately need this one. Definitely, you don't want to fall under 500 at this point in the season. And Brian, you are on your way to having difficulty here with your 3-game losing streak. And as you mentioned before, and I will re-mention it since you keep mentioning it, your difficult final 4-week schedule there. You can thank Lexi for that. When you don't make the playoffs, you can thank Lexi in the Phillip Rivers jersey for screwing you at the end of the season, building up your hopes and then popping them like a balloon. Then we got, speaking of Lexi, we got Biscuits and Porn. Jim Crick, he is facing Darkwing Jet. Darkwing Justin's been on a roll. He's actually on a 4-game win streak after starting strong, sliding in the middle of the season. He's actually on a 4-game heater. Yeah, so that is going to be a tough matchup. Your projections are pretty much even. So yeah, that's going to be an excellent matchup to watch. Justin trying to keep pace, trying to possibly sneak a bye week away from Dub C or the Wizard. Well, Biscuits needs to get a victory here and not drop under 500 with 1 week to go. Then the final 6-6 is Boomers. He gets Dub C Hooligans, the number 1 team. So yeah, Biscuits, Boomers, and Yinzer Jags all in getting tough matchups in weeks that they need to win. Ed Lager, the only team kind of getting, no offense, Gags, kind of getting a cakewalk here. A lot of bye weeks this week, so not really sure how much that will play into things. I get Shawshank Athletics. Currently has no Saquon, currently no defense. See what he does there. He's got to plug in some players. And AIDS versus Possum Magic, a matchup playing for Pride again there. This week, it said Wizard playing Josh. Hopefully, not going to say that that's a cakewalk either. But between him and Gags, I would definitely choose to play Gags this week. Sorry, buddy, but we'll see what happens with Shawshank Athletics if they can pull off an upset this week and perhaps knock the Wizard down a little bit. So while Justin Darkwing Jet is trying to chase down a first round bye, sneak it away from one of us, well, I am hoping that somehow the Dub C Hooligans are able to slip up and let me sneak up in there into first place by the end of the regular season. I should mention this also too, that as you probably can guess, the 1 week that I didn't start Jared Goff and I started Justin Fields, it still hurts right in here. And right in here, it still hurts. Oh, because I would be 10. I'd be 10-2. I'd be in first place. I would have the overall point total right now. Just thinking of, I have to. I have it. I assure you that I do. It crosses my mind way more than it probably should. That 1 week, Justin Fields. What could have been if I had just stayed with Goff? I could be in first place right now by a game. Anyway, it is what it is, right, Gags? So what else? We're at the 40-minute mark. Not too bad. We kind of flew right through those matchups. There wasn't too much crazy to talk about this past week. Hopefully we actually get a podcast this week. A lot of bye weeks that these guys are taking this year. Detling, though, I guess he's got an excuse. Congratulations to him on the brand new baby. Keeping with the trend, I assume. They named their Farrah Fawcett Detling. We got Franz Ferdinand, and now we got Farrah Fawcett. Strong names, I would say. Don't forget, Disco will swallow, if any of you are interested. And so yeah, we went through the matchups for week 13. No longer the last week of the regular season, but yeah, we will see what happens with all of these 6-6 teams. If they're able to muddle things up in the playoff race there, going into the final week of the season in week 14 there, if Biscuits can knock off Justin, maybe knock him back a little bit. So did Boomers, can he knock off Dub C? Would like to see that. His playoff chase there, he needs it. Then Yinzer Jags versus Hillbillies. That should be a great matchup to watch. Both of these guys need that one desperately. And so, yeah, we're going to have some very interesting matchups. At least 3. Hopefully mine is interesting. Josh can put up a good fight. But yeah, at least 3 matchups with significant. I mean, Ed, we're penciling in Ed for a win this week. Sort of penciling me in. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, those other 3 matchups, Darkwing versus Biscuits, Boomers versus Dub C, and Hillbillies versus Yinzers. Big implications for those 3 matchups in terms of the playoff race as we head into the final week of the season. Already getting there. All right, guys. I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks for listening, watching, or whatever it is you do. Kevin, your dog took a shit on... where were you in the draft? You were... Where's Dub C? What pick were you in the draft? You were like... Right... I want to say right here. No. Because you picked A.J. Brown. You were 6. Bean. There it says. Kevin, your dog took a shit right here on that. It's not on my head. It's actually way back there. There it is. All the way down. I can see a little... You must have taken a piss too, because I can see the piss just running down right in here. Please clean that up whenever you get a chance. Right, guys? May all your players meet or exceed expectations this week. Nobody gets hurt. Everybody has fun. And we come back here to see what the playoff picture is going to look like heading into the final week of the regular season. Who's going to be in? Who's going to be out? Hell, let's take a look at week 14 just to see where those guys are at. Week 14, I get AIDS. Whoa. I will be playing against the team named AIDS. Biscuits versus Hillbillies. That could be important. Justin versus Gags. That'll be probably an easy one for you. Dub C versus Shawshank. Ed versus Possum. And Boomers versus Yinzers. So a lot is going to shake out based on what happens this week. So that Brian versus Jim matchup will be important next week. Probably Boomers versus Yinzers will be important. Um, Other than that, kind of lopsided matchups on paper, at least in Week 14. It'll definitely be jockeying for position based on what happens here this week, and we will see who gets in, who gets out. We got 8 teams fighting for 6 spots. Basically, 5 teams fighting for 3. So who is going to get in? Who's going to end up crying at the end of the day on the outside looking in? Left out in the cold, dreaming about what could have been, and hoping for next year. Whew, alright guys, I said my goodbyes and then I talked for another minute or two. We will see you back here next week to discuss, again, the events of Week 13 and look forward to what will hopefully be an exciting Week 14. Alright guys, thanks for listening, watching, whatever it is you do, and we will see you back here again next week. Alright, bye-bye. Thanks.